summit says that nations need to come up with bold ideas to reduce the impact of climate change. Alok Sharma was speaking at the Petersburg Climate Dialogue Summit.
We need to secure global net zero by mid-century so that we can keep the 1.5 degrees within reach. Countries are being asked to come forward with ambitious 2030 emissions reduction targets that align with reaching net zero by the middle of the century.
Hardship felt during the COVID-19 pandemic has spurred European Union leaders to beef up safeguards for its 450 million citizens in welfare, jobs and gender equality. But not everyone was impressed by their good intentions, which are not binding for the bloc's 27 governments. EU leaders held a summit in Porto in Portugal on Friday to discuss how they can ensure equal opportunities for all and that no one is left behind. Palestinian worshippers clashed with Israeli police on Friday evening at Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem's Old City as tensions soared again. The Palestinian Red Crescent Emergency Service says 53 people were wounded in clashes with police there and elsewhere in Jerusalem, including 23 who were taken to hospital. Stocks rallied to more records on Wall Street on Friday as a stunningly disappointing report on the nation's job market signaled to investors that interest rates are likely to remain low. The S&P 500 rose 1.7% to the previous all-time high set last month. The Dow Jones Industrial Average set a record high for the straight day. And first came the amazing pictures, then the video. Now NASA is sharing sounds of its little helicopter humming through the thin Martian air. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California released this first ever on Friday, just before Ingenuity was set to soar on its fifth test flight.
Showbiz.
Nick Hewitt marks his final day on the set of Countdown by posing outside of his dressing room with a golden TV trophy. The 77-year-old is stepping down after nearly 10 years in the hot seat. He's to be replaced by Anne Robinson, the first female host of the Channel 4 game show. Hewitt posted a photo on Twitter and called my last day in the Countdown studio. Legend here with a rare, priceless golden teapot. Legend is David Eady, the Countdown producer for 24 hours. Gary Lineker has become the latest high-profile broadcaster targeted by HMRC. The tax affair has gone to a tribunal. The match play host was told by the tax man he should be classed as an employee of the BBC and BT Sport his presenting duties rather than as a freelancer. HMRC are now pursuing him for £4.9 million. They claim should have been paid in income received between 2013 and 2018. And Les Dennis is to replace Paul Mosley, the host of Hairspray's Walker Turnblad. The new production of the hit musical opens. That's the
Business.
over 1 million homes granted planning permission in England in the past decade are yet to be built. That's according to the Local Government Association. They've announced that 2.7 million homes have been granted permission by councils since the year 2010-2011. Over the same period, there have been 1.6 million completions. The association is now calling for the councils to be given powers in a planning bill to incentivise developers to build housing. Prices for summer breaks have not been ramped up ahead of the government's announcement of the Green Travel List. That's according to the UK's largest holiday firm. TUI's managing director for the UK and Ireland, Andrew Flintham, announced it will be a long time before travel companies can consider boosting profit margins. And BT is set to reveal a fall in profits for 2020 as bosses unveil its full-year results next week, despite shares rising 40% in the last 12 months. The fall is expected to be due to fierce competition during COVID, as well as asset sales and declining revenues from legacy products such as landline phones.
Now we're gradually coming out of lockdown. We can get together again outside. Have a picnic for 6 in the park. Separate blankets and lots of space, obviously. But what if another friend walks by? It'd be rude not to invite them over, wouldn't it? The more people you meet, the greater your risk of getting COVID-19. So only meet in groups of up to 6 or 2 households. Let's take this next step safely. Remember, hands, face, space and fresh air.
News Radio UK. Weather.
Tonight is going to be fairly mild with some blustery spells of rain. The outlook for Sunday. Sunday will remain fairly breezy and the possibility of some showers in the west with thunder likely in the afternoon. continue this afternoon with several key areas still to announce. The mayoral races for London and Greater Manchester continue, with Sadiq Khan and Andy Byrne both hoping for re-election for Labour. Meanwhile, Labour in Wales are close to a majority, with vital SNP seats needed for them to secure the Holyrood election. The result of that is expected this afternoon. A man in his 20s has been arrested in connection with the murder of PCSO Julia James, Kent police has said. While the police are no longer appealing for information about him, they say they still need to hear from anyone who was in the area at the time between 1 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 27th of April. There are more concerns about flammable cladding on hundreds of high-rise buildings around the UK. It comes after a fire at a block in East London, with 2 people taken to hospital and dozens treated at the scene for smoke inhalation. Aspana Bergen is the MP for Popular and Limehouse where the fire occurred.
They are actually quite devastated. The nightmare that they've been warning the government about was the nightmare that they woke up to. And, I can't understate the feeling of distress and anger that they feel.
Portugal, Australia, New Zealand and Gibraltar are among the places Brits can travel to from the 17th of this month without having to pay to quarantine upon return to England. Meanwhile, Rory Bolland from the Consumer Rights Group, which says there's more to think about than just being able to fly home without needing to pay for a hotel.
So we now know where we can go with this green list of countries within reason, but what you need to do is give thought to how you're going to go. What are some of the risks of disruption? Are the financial risks that you may face, because they remain significant.
And a health chief has warned that thousands of NHS workers are experiencing unacceptable levels of exhaustion. The British Medical Association say more than half of doctors surveyed had worked extra shifts as part of the COVID-19 response, of which 28% were unpaid. The BMA's COVID-19 tracker survey in April also revealed 44% of doctors felt pressurised by their employer. That's the latest from Radio News Hub. I'm Mark Atherton.
Sport.
Doubts have been cast over the Champions League final, with the government putting Turkey on the red list of countries from early on Wednesday morning. The Transport Secretary Grant Shapps had this message for Chelsea and Manchester City fans.
It does mean...
For Sheffield Wednesday in 7 minutes space, Callum Patterson from the Cardiff City man, Cardiff losing to Rotherham, and Julian Borner, 2 goals for Sheffield Wednesday. But it doesn't really do Wednesday any good unless Cardiff, back in his former side, get a goal. Rotherham are staying up as it stands, but still about 20 minutes of the Championship season to go. We'll be back with those games shortly. We'll also keep tabs on Watford today. They're home to Swansea, who are in the playoffs. Watford promoted. Elton John's at the ground, confetti all over the place. It's been a celebratory move. What about the football, Florence Lloyd Hughes?
Yeah, 81 minutes gone in this one. It's still Watford 1, Swansea 0. That Andre Gray goal in the second half, giving Watford the lead. And the tempo started a little bit. Troy Deeney came on for Gray and injected a little bit of energy into the game. It's just died down a little bit now. Watford still trying to work hard to hold their lead, and Swansea obviously pushing to find the equaliser. But it's been a low energy game all in all, which is not surprising from these two teams. One of them already promoted and certainly probably feeling a little tad exhausted from that, and Swansea obviously with the playoffs on the horizon. But hopefully there'll be more celebrations at full time if they can hold on to this one. It's Watford 1, Swansea 0.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go back to Ellen Road. Another goal, or is it? We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Stockley Park tell us whether it's definitely confirmed, but it looks like VAR are having a look at Leeds going further ahead. Nick Godwin.
It's terrible defending by Spurs, whether they chalk this off or not, but it's Leeds 3, Tottenham 1. Rodrigo has scored the goal that surely ends Tottenham's involvement in the chase for top 4 this season. The game is back underway, so it will stand. Spurs had pushed too far forward, and Rafina got away down the left. Eric Dyer was on his own on the edge of the 18-yard box. It was almost comical as he looked at Rodrigo and said, well, I can't deal with you. I've got to close down Rafina, who cut it back, and Rodrigo stroked it into the empty net. It's no more than really Leeds deserve. They have been the better team all game long. Tottenham's little blizzard of pressure halfway through this second half came to absolutely nothing, and this is a game Spurs really had to win. But as things stand, they're going to lose it heavily, and they're going to lose it with a real whimper, because this should have been the day Spurs re-articulated their top 4 credentials. They have looked miles off it so far. 5 minutes to go. Leeds 3, Tottenham 1.
Real chance as well with Leicester slipping up last night, being beaten heavily by Newcastle United. Spurs would have moved to within 4 points of Leicester right now. Only 3 games to go. You never know. In that sort of circumstance, Chelsea play Manchester City at tea time today. West Ham host Everton tomorrow. West Ham United. If City were to win, West West Ham can go level on points with Chelsea. Spurs would then be 5 points off it with 4 games to play. Elsewhere in the we'll just go through the Championship actual scores as they stand. Blackburn Rovers are now 5-2 up against Birmingham City. Barnsley 2-2 with Norwich. Blackburn Rovers 5, Birmingham City 2. Stoke City lead 2-0 at Bournemouth. And let's go back, if we can, to Ashton Gate. Billy Reeves is watching Brentford against Bristol City, and the Bees are enjoying life heading into the playoffs. Billy Reeves.
Bristol City 0, Brentford 3. This is like a pre-season game against a lower division side, which if any piece it is, just a ball banged across at the box. Podos completely got his feet wrong and did enough to fall Bentley, and there was Sergio Ramos with all the time in the world to smash it past his former colleague. 84 gone, Robbins nil, Bees 3.
Thank you very much indeed. Coventry City beating Millwall 5-1 at the moment. Derby County 2, Sheffield Wednesday 3 in that game. Derby need 2 goals to stay up. Sheffield Wednesday need a goal elsewhere. For Cardiff, who are currently losing at home to Rotherham by a goal to nil. Middlesbrough 0, Wycombe 3. If results go their way, then Wycombe need another 10 goals and they may stay up. It's been extraordinary. They may not finish bottom, and they may finish just 1 point and goal difference away from safety. If the season had gone on another three weeks, Wycombe would be staying up, probably, possibly. Nottingham Forest 1, Preston North End 2, Reading 2, Huddersfield 1, and another goal at St Andrews. Coventry City against Millwall. Stuart Smith.
Almost straight from a corner from the left-hand side. The ball played in towards the near post. I don't think it hit anybody. Maybe the goalkeeper. Walker's claiming it. Coventry 6, Millwall 1.
It's gracious me, very un-Millwall like that, to concede 6 goals in a single game. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Cricket taking place, of course. Kent Championship is into the 3rd day of 4. Middlesex lead Gloucester by 29 runs in the 2nd innings, 92 for 5 in their 2nd. Not bad for 10 in the 1st. Gloucestershire 273. Raiders delayed most of the other games that are taking place, including Surrey's day 3 at Leicester. Leicester 496 all out in their first inning. Surrey 146 loss. It's 3:15. We've just got going. It's been a hectic start to the programme, hasn't it? Let's face it, it's been a hectic start to the day in many respects. We'll look back at what's happened in the early kickoffs a little bit later, get reaction later on as well. We do, though, have some important games kicking off at 3 o'clock this afternoon, including Crystal Palace travelling to Sheffield United. Palace not yet safe, Sheffield United down. Emma Jones watching this one.
Do remind me what dates it is, Phil?
I've got no idea what day it is, never mind what day.
Honestly, the rain that is pouring down here at Bramall Lane, it is cold, it is wet, it feels like the kind of day that means that there is still enough football to be played for Sheffield United to be safe in the Premier League. Of course, they were relegated with a defeat away against Wolves recently. Crystal Palace have looked like they've been safe for some time, but a win today would make them mathematically safe in the Premier League.
From a free kick, terrific finish from Britain though. Robbins 1, Bees.
Thanks very much indeed. Goals flying in is what tends to happen at this stage of the season, though. But as it stands, Brentford will definitely be playing Bournemouth in the playoffs because they are currently losing to Stoke. Barnsley getting a point and finish 5th. Swansea Barnsley will be the playoff game, the other semi-final, and then the winners of the 2 semi-finals face each other. Watford are going to finish on 91 points, Norwich on 97. Currently, Norwich, Brentford 3rd, Swansea 4th, Barnsley 5th, and Bournemouth 6th. Derby County staying up as it stands at this moment in time. But I think an equaliser for Sheffield Wednesday just throws us all into complexity as to what's happening. Blackburn 5, Birmingham 2 is a full-time score in a game that only Blackburn and Birmingham fan. Millwall, Stuart Smith.
Feels like it should be an edge-bastard with a score like this. It's almost a cricket score. Coventry City 6, Millwall 1. Not the way way to end the season for the London side. They went behind on 16 minutes through Jordan Shipley for Coventry City. McFadzean on the half-time whistle made it 2-1 for Coventry. But Millwall came back at the start of the second half, having made 3 changes when a Malone cross found Bradshaw to make it 2-1. You thought the Lions were back on the prowl, but not to be. Some very slack, some very casual, some very poor defending allowed Hyam, O'Hare, James and Walker to add to the scoreline. Embarrassing defeat. Disappointment? No, much more than disappointment. It was complete shambles. Coventry City 6, Millwall 1.
So un-Millwall-like, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Really from the start, the players, I like Ryan Woods in midfield. He probes and time. He looked like he'd been in his sickbed for a week because there was no zest, no zing about his performance. Mitchell Hart.
Rest is unquenched. Let there be fruit. When you're out loving life with the sun beaming down, or you're dancing to the radio, there's nothing zesty to be found. When your water tastes like water. Let there be fruit. Liven up your water with Robinsons.
I'd be something non-starter. Went camping then. Yep. Mo next door was like eBay pre-loved tents, sustainable and cheap. Aye, his wife Rita chimed in. Get a new rainproof jacket from Brand Outlet on eBay. I'll save a bomb. I guess you came into the tent in the morning. On me. No. A cow. A cow? A cow. Liked my face before I woke up. Jeez, you got mad at eBay deals and a morning kiss. Bargain. More ways to win when you buy and sell eBay. They say the more you put in, the more you get out. But while it's true of learning how to play the saxophone, it's not true of the all-new Hyundai i20. Advanced safety features, amazing connectivity, great new design, and it's a mild hybrid. And with additional savings at the Hyundai Hybrid event, this time, when you put less in, you get more out. The all-new Hyundai i20. Ready to impress. Offer ends 30th of June. Saving against list price. T's and C's apply. Guarantee may be required. Hyundai Finance.
The news in 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes. 24 hours a day. Where the news never stops. This is LBC News.
From local newsroom, it's 2 or just gone. I'm Nick Qureshi. Hello, here are the headlines. This Saturday afternoon, Labour is holding on to power in Welsh Senedd but can't secure an overall majority and not able to add to the 30 seats they secured overnight. But First Minister Mark Drakeford says his party has exceeded expectations in the election. Boris Johnson says an independence referendum in Scotland would be irresponsible and reckless. Sturgeon says if the SNP wins a majority, then she'll offer voters a choice on their future. But it's looking more uncertain whether she will get that majority. A man has been arrested in connection with the murder of police community support officer Julia James. 53-year-old was found dead in woods in Kent last week. And rail passengers in parts of England are being advised not to travel after reports of cracks were found on some trains. Many Great Western and London North Eastern services have been cancelled while the carriages are checked.
LBC News. Weather.
Rain in southern and western England, moving to the north as we go through. A milder day with highs of 18 degrees. I'm Hannah Nita. I've got a full forecast in the next 15 minutes.
LBC News. Travel.
Problems continue on the trains in London this afternoon because of safety checks. Great Western have several cancellations on routes heading into and out of London Paddington, and there is severe disruption across the whole of the London North Eastern network. There are also no southern services running into and out of Victoria again this weekend and every weekend throughout May because of engineering works. Onto the roads, and the M4 in Berkshire, that remains shut in both directions across the weekend for the major works, including Junction 6 for Slough and Windsor, onto 89 for Maidenhead, and the M66 in Greater Manchester, that is being held northbound from Junction 4 to 3 from the M60 up to Hollands because of an accident involving 2 cars. I'm Johnny Ratner. Your next update is in 20 minutes here on LBC News.
This is LBC News.
Good afternoon to you. 24 minutes past 2 is the time here on LBC News. Nick Qureshi with you. So we'll across to Wales very shortly to find out the latest there. So Labour holding on to power, but still, as Daniel Bevan was telling us, couldn't quite get over the line for that 31-seat majority in the Senedd. It's all still very tight in Scotland too, where Nicola Sturgeon is hoping for a majority for the SNP, but smart money from many people saying that is not going to happen, and a lot of soul searching in England too after Labour's poor performance in most
areas. Let us hear from the Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle, who has called the performance catastrophic.
It is a disaster for Social Democrats across Europe. It is a disaster for Social Democrats in Germany, where they're now third, fourth, Greens are leading, France, etc. So anyone that says this is Keir, or anyone actually that says it was just Joe last time, etc., I think is totally missing the point. Labour and Social Democrat parties, and Labour is a democratic socialist party, only win when we build a broad coalition. That is a broad coalition of people from the far left and people in the centre. And how you do that is not by denigrating either side, but it's about bringing those people together, working out what things you can give to each group, what things you have to compromise. And the only leader in recent times, I mean in the last 1 or 2 years, who has really managed to do that is Joe Biden in the US. And Joe Biden in the US managed to put a common sense, Uncle Joe kind of personality forward.
No, but you've had one in the Labour Party too, though.
No, but at the same time, he was able to bring the centre on board without them arguing, and the left. Now, I think Keir could do that, but he has to make sure that he starts to make some changes. The left feel very much like they've been pilloried, very much like they've been attacked, very much like it's always just about the old was bad and here's the new, rather than saying, let's come together.
That was Lloyd Russell Moyle, Labour MP. We will hear more election analysis in just a moment, but first let's tell you about rail passengers facing significant disruption across the network. A number of high-speed trains having precautionary checks after cracks were found. LBC's Andy Ballantyne can bring us more. He's at Bristol Templemead Station.
People are frantically on their phones, talking to friends and family, trying to get some kind of information, or they're on their web browsers trying to find alternatives as to how they can travel to their final destinations. It's as a number of Class 800 series Hitachi trains from several train companies, including Great Western, which runs services from London Paddington to the West Country and further into the southwest, have been taken out of service for checks as a precautionary safety measure. London North Eastern and Hull services have also been affected. Well, when the news broke earlier, I managed to grab a word with some passengers who had had their travel plans disrupted.
Well, I'm from Bristol, but I was hoping to go to London to see some friends that I haven't seen since last summer.
So I was going to Reading today. Going to go home for a couple of days. To be honest, it's a Saturday. I don't really have anywhere I desperately need to be.
We've been given a statement by Great Western Railway, who say the problem's being investigated by Hitachi, and once trains have been checked, they hope to be able to release them back into service as soon as possible. This will affect a significant number of today's intercity services, and local lines are also likely to be extremely busy with passengers as they try and transfer onto other services. It's thought as many as a third of services could be affected. Customers are being advised not to travel. The good news is, though, Nick, that obviously refunds will be provided, and customers should visit gwr.com to get more information about that.
That was Andy Ballantyne for us at Bristol Templemead Station. We'll go back to our man of the moment, Daniel Bevan, in the Vale of Glamorgan. Next, he broke the news that the elections to the Welsh Senedd were in effect over, and that the governing Labour Party couldn't secure an overall majority. Nevertheless, Mark Drake, who we know is still in power, and he says the party has exceeded expectations. So back to Daniel shortly, 29 minutes past 2 now.
This is LBC News.
Welcome to the Bognor School of Zen Motoring. Drivers and riders, watch out for our fellow travellers on life's road. It's hard to know what's going to happen unless you're telepathic. Mr. Hatchback's making a right turn. Has he seen that moped? He has. Nice. Moped's not taking any chances. He's slowing down. Cool like a cucumber. Drivers and riders, let's watch out for each other. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is the tale of Pablo the cat. Pablo took pigeon patrol extremely seriously, ruling his garden with an iron paw, until one plucky bird led him high up a tree. And let's just say, Pablo discovered he can't fly. Luckily, Pets in a Pickle Joe's family with a safety net, covering the vet's bills to get him back on patrol. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinappickle.co.uk.
I'm Nimka Ali, host of Common Ground. Join me as I welcome guests looking for mutual understanding on key issues that matter to both of us. Guests such as Home Secretary Priti Patel.
There is something so broken in culture and also in our politics.
Author and comedian David Baddiel.
Jews are the only minority that get this double-edged racism, which is like, yeah, you're scum, oh, and also you're powerful and privileged and in control of the world.
Common Ground with me, Nimka Ali. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
At Hello You Dating, we understand that all it takes to start something meaningful is a simple hello. We know that great conversations can lead to new experiences, new dreams, new adventures, and new love. So, take that next step. Be yourself and start the conversation today at Hello You. Sign up and browse profiles for free at helloyoudating.com.
LBC News. Weather.
Rain in southern and western England moving to the north as we go through, turning quite heavy over hilly areas. Brighter in Northern Ireland, but some scattered showers around as well. Some bright spells in southern and eastern England when the wind clears. Windy for most of us, but a mild day. Quite warm in the southeast, in fact, highs of 18 degrees. Staying mild as we go into tonight. More rain on the way, especially for parts of Wales and western England, but it will be turning lighter and patchier later.
Our thanks there to Hannah Nita with our forecast LBC News time on this Saturday afternoon, coming up to 27.5 minutes to 3 o'clock. Nick Horatio with you for the next half hour or so before Philip Chrysikos takes over. And what a busy day it's been for a Saturday. I expect the news agenda to be tailing off a little bit, certainly not today and certainly not in Wales, because Welsh Labour is the biggest party in the Senedd election. The party has fought off a number of challenges. You'll recall a while ago we were speaking live to my colleague Daniel Bevan at Counts in Vale of Glamorgan, where it was then realised that Labour couldn't secure an outright majority in these elections, and Daniel is back with us now. However, Mark Drakeford admitting that the party had done a lot better than many had expected, so he should be taking some comfort from their results.
Well, there's no doubt that one of the happiest men in Wales today is going to be Mark Drakeford. It looked in the days leading up to the election that Wales' biggest party, Welsh Labour, they were probably going to have a fight on their hands to keep hold of some key seats. But Welsh Labour have returned a working majority, but not an overall majority in the Senedd. Now, it all came down to this count where I am for the South Wales Central Regional seat, which returned 2 Tories and 2 Plaid members. So overall, this will still go down as a large win, equaling their best ever Senedd election results, but there may be disappointment they didn't manage to make history and get that overall majority and be the first party to ever do so. It would feel like the coronavirus pandemic had a huge part to play in the electorate's minds. Mark Drakeford has been front and centre of this as the First Minister of Wales, and currently the vaccine rollout here, the number of jabs, first jabs and second jabs as well, the lowest rates of coronavirus in Wales. So these elections, if anything, came at a very good time, because if they'd happened 18 months ago, there was actually some polls suggesting that the Welsh Conservatives could end up with being the biggest party share, perhaps even a majority, which would have been unthinkable at the time. Right now, it just goes to show how long that goes. It seems now with Labour actually taking home one of the biggest majorities that Senators ever seen.
I suppose it has to be said that the pandemic has, for the incumbents, it's not been too bad, and they've done all right out of these elections. So we talked about Labour there. How have the other parties fared exactly?
Well, Labour's coalition partners, who are the Welsh Liberal Democrats, they look like they're in a bit of a sorry state at the moment. They have managed to keep a seat, but it means losing one and gaining one. They lost the seat they were Conservatives. As a result of that, quite directly, they managed to pick up a seat on the regional list system because they didn't win a constituency. That vote tends to favour parties who don't win constituencies, and that meant that their leader, Jane Dodds, managed to get a seat, enter the Senate for the first time. Now, why is that significant? Well, if the Welsh Labour decide to end up going into a coalition to get a working majority, then you'd imagine the Welsh Liberal Democrats are going to be the number one candidate because they have the one seat, that's all they need, and they've done it before. They did it in 2016 with Kirsty Williams taking the job as Education Minister in return for propping up the Welsh Government. In terms of how the Tories have done, of course, it's been a very successful day for them across the border in England. They had gone into this election hopeful of making some real gains. One of the first results of yesterday suggested that could actually ring true as Gareth Davis took the Vale of Clwyd from Labour, that seat turning blue for the first time, and that majority was very slim, only 366 votes in it. Other seats in North Wales, though, that make up the so-called Red Wall in North Wales, they managed to stay Labour. Wrexham, Clwyd South, Delyn, those actually turned blue in the general election. They managed to stay red this time out. So Labour will feel that is a bedrock of their keeping their success so far in this election. And just finally, Plaid Cymru, it's not been a positive election for them. Adam Price, the leader, he very much led a presidential style campaign, very much keeping himself front and centre. A vote for Plaid Cymru was a vote for him as First Minister. That was the message that he wanted. It hasn't rung true. They've retained Ceredigion and seats in North West Wales, but they suffered a shock defeat as Leanne Wood, their former leader, who had a shock of her own in 2016 when she won the Rhondda off Labour. That's now switched back to Labour. It wasn't expected to, it has now. So overall, Labour are the biggest winners. Let me just take you through the final results of this Senate election. Labour gaining one seat to 30. The Conservatives, actually their best election result ever. As I say, they might feel a bit disappointed they didn't do better, but it's still the best ever election result here in Wales, gaining 5 seats up to 16. Plaid Cymru, they've gained 1 to 13 seats, and the Welsh Liberal Democrats remain on 1.
Right, Daniel, thank you very much indeed for your invaluable insight into what's happened there. Daniel has been with us in the Vale of Glamorgan, where we now know the outcome of the elections to the Welsh Senedd. Mark Drakeford still the First Minister, Labour getting 30 seats, but falling just short of that overall majority. I'm Nick Qureshi. Thank you for joining me this Saturday afternoon. At the time now, 22 minutes to 3. Top stories next.
Elections 2021. With over 5,000 seats of power to be filled. Follow every count that matters. Reporting from across the country, LBC News brings you all the political fallout. Listen live for all the results across the weekend on LBC News.
At Asda, we want to do our bit to make the world a better place. Better for you, better for our local communities, better for the planet. That's why we're working with you to create change for better, to create meaningful changes that make a real difference. Because when we work together, we can achieve more for the causes we all care about, like poverty, protecting the planet, and healthy living. Visit asda.com/creatingchangeforbetter to find out more.
Welcome to the Ogmere School of Zen Motoring. Drivers and riders, watch out for our fellow travellers on life's road. It's hard to know what's going to happen, unless you're telepathic. Mr. Hatchback's making a right turn. But has he seen that moped? He has. Nice. Moped's not taking any chances. He's slowing down. Cool like a cucumber. Drivers and riders, let's watch out for each other. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Join me, Ruth Davidson, host of An Inconvenient Ruth, the place where I talk to some of the world's biggest names to find out the keys to their success. It's the turn of Olympian Chris Akabusi.
I couldn't believe that I was black. I came home and said to Auntie Dory, is it true? My African name is Keezy, but she pronounced it Keeza. She said, yes, Keeza, you're black. I said, I can't be black. And so I went to bed thinking, okay, well, if I wake up in the morning, maybe I won't be black in the morning.
An Inconvenient Ruth with me, Ruth Davidson. Download wherever you get your podcasts.
Would your dog like peace of mind from Pets in a Pickle Pet Insurance? That's a yes from him. Visit petsinnapickle.co.uk.
News, sport, travel, weather in 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes. With
From Global's newsroom, it's 20 to 3. Hello, Nick Qureshi with you this Saturday afternoon. Here is the latest. Labour holds power in Wales. Here from one passenger, Charlie, who's been speaking to LBC's Andy